The only reason I'm not saying gold is because, look, there's always room to improve.
Now, see, I'm gonna give gold, but we didn't set the world record. This is the Loud Quiet Living the Empty Nest.
Hey everybody, welcome back to The Loud Quiet. This is episode 48. And before we get into the topic of today, I just want to actually say thank you. That short that we put out last week, there was a lot of action on that. And not that we're about the vanity metrics, about downloads or views. It's just nice to see that folks are engaging with it and agreeing or disagreeing with the things that we might be talking about. And that's the community that we are looking to build here with The Loud Quiet, is not only the things that we might say or the life that we live and sharing it on the mic. It's also about learning from the wider group of folks that are out there that are empty nesters as well, or those that are about to be, or those that have no aspirations to be anytime soon.
Yeah, we were shocked and surprised at the amount of views that we got on that last short and episode. So
it's because we positively manifested it.
And I hope y'all are enjoying the shorts. That's something that the little teasers, as I call it, when I'm putting them out there. But that's just something that we started and are liking what it's showing, just to get our page more visible and podcast more visible. And
it's a place for folks to reinforce this point. It's a place for y'all to comment back, especially those of you that are listening just to the audio only. Realize this is sitting on YouTube as a just regular YouTube channel, but it's technically a YouTube short. It's also available on Instagram and Facebook, I believe, is where you've been placing it, as I look to my social media manager.
But we obviously hear a lot of word of mouth feedback, but yes, we'd love for y'all to comment on our posts and that kind of thing.
Even if you disagree.
Yeah.
And that's fine too.
Yes. Just don't become trolls and make ugly statements, but disagreement is fine.
That's right. Disagree with courtesy, with dignity.
But we thought we'd today do, unless you don't have a TV or don't have access to a phone it is the Olympics right now.
Right. Opening ceremony 2 days ago from the recording. I know the release will be about a week, but yeah.
And again, we'll get into some of this, but Celine Dion was amazing. That was just that should have made everyone feel very good about.
And if someone doesn't know the story, this is obviously Celine Dion. I will not explain who she is. Go Google it if you really don't know that name. She has been suffering from a disease that I can't remember the official name of it, but it's stiff person disease, stiff potty disease. And this was her first public performance since that diagnosis took her off the stage. And it was a powerful one. And she's got great pipes, as one would expect, but even just her physical passion and what she was delivering on stage was spectacular.
Yeah. It was really good. So we thought that we would do an empty nest version of the Olympics.
We're not going to the track.
No, this is not physical activities or feats of strength. No, this is categories that we thought that we would bring into. And now that we've been doing this it'll be almost a year. It'll be a year in a few weeks, just to give ourselves some grades, see how we have medaled on some of these categories.
We weren't even invited to the Olympics on categories.
Or we may not have even, made it to the podium or gotten on the plane.
That's right. So. Well, there may be a lot of folks that didn't get on the plane, but that's a different story.
So we just thought that would be a fun little take on the Empty Nest Olympics.
So what are these Empty Nest Olympics? Well, we won't go through all of them. We'll go through them one at a time, right? So first one.
So the first category is maintaining friendships and making new friends.
All right. How did you medal or not medal, Clancy?
Well, maintaining the friendships I've already established. Nothing in that area has changed. It's all been smooth sailing. And that's what I was, even Friday night after we got back from car shopping and being out with Tanner, I threw a text to our neighbors, "Hey, are y'all home? Come over." And they came over and we watched the opening ceremonies together. So maintaining the friendships that I already have, I would give myself a gold medal.
All
in that
right,
one.
gold medal.
Yes. The
flag
new
is being
friend-
risen. The empty nest anthem
the
is being
Olympic
played.
theme is playing. Making new friends. I mean, we're both kind of making new friends together. So
I'll give my own medal
there you
rating.
go. Yeah. So this one needs some work and cultivation, which that's how making new friends are. We've got a couple of new groups that we're, excuse me, getting more involved with. So hopefully over time, those will allow me to be on the podium. I don't feel like I'm on the podium in this
Gotcha.
category.
So yeah, maintaining friendships. When I think of specifically the neighborhood relationships that you're describing there, yeah, I'd go silver. Silver because I may not be the most active as far as the outreach. I think about it. Sometimes I delegate it through you. Hey, have you reached out to them or those kind of things?
That's a man, and that's also
Yeah, but even
I know.
Before it'd be throwing a text to the guys, hey, let's go sit on the porch and drink a bourbon or something like that. Some of it is simply, and this is an excuse. This is not a reason. Like it's not justifiable, but it's, oh, I just don't feel like it. Oh, I'm just tired, or I don't want to. I kind of like That's the kind of thing I think that I could really fall into in the empty nest of. I'm quite comfortable being alone. I'm comfortable being alone. And there are so many, and in fact, another study this week coming out that's talked about how age and friendships inside of age are a more significant factor than things like smoking or eating or those sorts of things when it comes to longevity. So there's a little bit of, maybe force and remind myself of, no, hit the text out there for those friendships.
And that's, you think of summer as being a more laid back, more available time. That's just how you think of it. But this summer has been really crazy busy for us with everything. We just have lots of moving parts going on. And so I think some of that adds a factor too. And, we've also talked about our friends mainly that we have were because of our kids. Well, now we don't have the kids here to introduce us to. We have met some of Tanner's friends' parents from college. We have not met any of Tegan's,
Right.
And so it's just
and that's going to have such a geographic disbursement that those went. And so on the making new friends, I'm glad that you alluded to life group, because otherwise I would have said that I didn't even know that was an event. Like if I were actually categorizing myself, not that I wasn't even on the plane, I'd be one that was like, oh, that's in the Olympics? Like it'd be that kind of thing. Yeah. Although I have to be reminded of the fact that you and I specifically chose to see if we could facilitate an empty nest group through our church, and that has proven some new relationships that have been very valuable. So I will say that I'm in training, but there's nowhere near the medal stand for me on the Making New Friends event.
And I think about, you should think about church as being a place that you can meet new people, similar mindsets, not always, but similar. But, I feel like sometimes it's one of the hardest places to break into. And we've even experienced that this summer when you offered to help in another area and we're flat out told we don't need your help.
To be fair, just to be fair to the church itself, that was a voice of someone who was just a layman leading a group, had nothing. It was not directly church driven. I just want to defend them in that. Your point, though, is still. I wonder. Here's what I wonder about that. One, your point is right. Fact. It has been difficult to break into new relationships as we are older inside a church. Because we haven't done it elsewhere, is that church, or is that just the nature of relationships at this age? If we were trying to do that through a film studies group, or if we were trying to do that through a book group, is it more age, or is it?
I don't know if it even has to do with that. I think one of the things that stumped our relationship growth in churches is because we did switch churches several times.
And I don't regret any of those choices because they were done to aid our kids' faith development.
No, exactly.
I'd sacrifice our friendships for our kids' faith development any day.
You know, but I look at my parents, their entire friend group is revolved around church. Now, they, have maintained relationships with work friends too, but their core group is their church people that they have known for years.
You know what? We did an episode about friends like at the very beginning. And I may even, if I can find it, I may put it in the show notes if y'all want to go look at those. I think we're due for another one. And another one where we deep dive on this, because one, we could consume the whole episode. And we got some other events to get to, right? Yeah. There's a lot to this that we know more now after having been in this world for a year that we didn't know then. So.
And I think, we'll just drop a little teaser. We are going to have some special guests on next week's episode.
That's right.
Recording next week. And so we can talk to them about this subject. So
stay tuned. All right. Yes. So I got a silver and I've heard of the event.
All right, moving on.
Okay.
Planning and executing. So I did planning and executing dates and trips.
All right. How about I go first on this one since you went to the other? But I'm doing this sort of real time. I know we talked about these, but I kind of decided to go improv here. I'm not going to go gold for sure. And there's a time component to this too that I think that I could argue silver at a certain phase over the last year, and I might have slipped to bronze or even did not medal if we looked over the last 3 months. So I'm going to go with a longer time span just to make it sound better. And I'd go with silver, but where I fall short on this is I might have ideas, but a lot of times my ideas fall into a rut, and they are, hey, let's go to dinner. That is very frequently my planning and executing dates. Where I'm actually gold or hyper gold is thinking about trips. Man, I've spent so much time looking at Big Sky or looking at the Caymans or Tahiti or, how do you get to Nepal? Right? So planning, but executing on that
That's
part?
not planning, though. That's thinking.
Oh, well,
I know, but thinking's not up here.
The judge just disqualified me.
I just gave you the...
Boy, I got a DQ.
The flag was raised out of bounds.
I did go out of... So I think actually, depending on perspective, silver or bronze in this one. Silver or bronze.
I think we started off
well, heck yeah,
really, really well, really strong. We started off, we were out in front of everyone else behind us, but because when we did, and I think we were trying to forcibly fill the weekends after.
Now that sounds negative, though. I think that was the right choice, though, forcibly fill
right.
it.
No, I'm not saying that as a negative. I'm saying I think we were intentionally trying to fill the weekends because we did not have her at home to keep us entertained. So I think we did really, really well at the beginning. We even threw a trip in there at the very beginning. So yes, I agree. We started off strong, but I felt like towards the end of our first, before she came back, I felt like everything was Arizona or Austin.
Totally.
That's all we did. That was
no, but I'm agreeing with you.
Yes.
You don't need to defend it. I'm agreeing with you, and it was right. No, not right. It just was reality. Doesn't have to be that.
So, and I mean, I think I spoke to this last week when I've gotten more impromptu. Okay, yeah, let's go do this. I've gotten more off of my rigidness of doing that kind of stuff, and I love to go out to dinner. I love it when I don't have to cook. there were many nights this week that I wish I didn't have to come home and cook after being out all day with Tanner. But so I think
What would you medal
there's
yourself?
room for improvement. Well, like I said, I would have started off as silver or gold, but I think I guess, I think I've slipped off the podium a little bit and need to get back into the group. And we keep saying this, but after the kids get settled, well, I don't know if we're using that as an excuse, but I just can't think about, my brain capacity is already consumed with everything
I do
to get
sincerely.
them ready. So
Sorry.
I think that once they are settled again, I think we'll get that. And
I sincerely believe this is a unique summer, and so we'll see. Okay, folks, check in with us, hold us accountable 2 months from now. Where are we on the podium? Because Tanner will be in his apartment at law school, too busy to even breathe, and Tegan will be at Arizona.
And I think the change of seasons sometimes gives you that little, something new, and let's refresh and let's.
I think you're very much more in tune to that than I am.
Yeah. I was actually thinking yesterday, I like summer. I don't have it. I like every season. I don't love being cold, but we have not, where we live, we don't have super, super cold winters. But I think our bodies are just ready for something different and ready for a change. So there you go. All right, next. Discovering new hobbies. Wah, wah.
Well, you're first this time.
This is one that I didn't even qualify for the team. So I'm sitting at home watching everyone else do their new hobbies. We talked about it, but we did not do anything with it. Like the pickleball set is still sitting in the closet somewhere. Really, now. You're about to say the same thing. This was a hobby.
Huh?
So
That's exactly where my brain was going.
Okay, so
we did. Well,
I misspoke. Yes, on this we get a gold medal. We get 2 gold medals.
So maybe it's because of the way you phrase it, discovering new hobbies.
Yes, we did hobby, and we knocked it out of the park. If I can say that. So
well, I think our listeners and viewers will be the judge of that. But I know that when it comes to our original goal of this hobby, of that being something that connected us as a couple, by all means, this is a gold medal. When it comes to a variety, to say that I didn't qualify for the team would imply that I was actually doing something to even attempt to be on the team. Like this is, I
bought the equipment.
Okay, so you get that. I get that. Oh, I didn't know that was an event. So, and this may be one that it's not. Instead of judging ourselves so harshly about, we didn't medal for discovering new hobbies. Well, maybe it is that plural aspect of it. That kind of busyness is what can get you, not you, Clancy, the general you, in trouble, as opposed to focusing on something and going after that something.
Yeah. All right. Well, again, I didn't even think about this as being a hobby, but that's what it started. And so.
What I like about that, and I don't know that anybody else can pick up on that, is you saw my face. That shows 24 years of marriage. You saw my face and knew what I was.
Because I had the thought just as I said it, and then so there you go. All right, next, communicating with each other. I guess you start on this.
The only reason that I don't want to give us a gold is because we're not perfect. So I'm going to go with silver because there is room for improvement. Just in life, there always is a way to do things better. So that's the only reason I'm doing that. It's kind of like on a scale of 1 to 10, choosing a 9 kind of thing. This podcast specifically has generated so many elements of forcing us into conversations about topics that aren't just surface topics. And what I found interesting is we've had other kind of it doesn't happen all the time, but we've had topics about non-kids, non-social, just something that you have read or that I've seen in a newspaper, or discussing how do we make this better. Or just there, we've grown in the topics that we do talk about that are more like what we used to talk about when we were in dating and didn't have things like kids or family obligations or those sorts of things. So the only reason I'm not saying gold is because, look, there's always room to improve.
Now, see, I'm gonna give gold, but we didn't set the world record. So
okay. I will now change my answer. I like that.
Oh.
Okay, yeah.
Because I do think that and that's something scary for people who their kids are the only thing that they talk about or have anything in common with each other about. So no, I'm very pleased with how our communication has been over the past year. And like you said, we can just sit down and talk to each other, as shown on the last 48 episodes of
let's
Quiet.
Let's stop down on that. First of all, I love that you said that, right? Hey, yeah, it's a gold, just not the world record. Fine, because there's room for improvement. I like that. That's actually quite brilliant. Nice job. I want to ask the question, why? Why do you think that we would give ourselves gold? Not evaluating it. Maybe the question is, how have we come to a place that we can give each other golds?
Because I think I totally have this answer, and we've talked about it before. We were very, very intentional and good about, over the years of our marriage, and especially after we have kids, carving out time for each other. We were very fortunate, again, we've talked about it, to have parents that were willing to take our children so that we could have adult alone time. We were also very good about, after they went to bed, we put them to bed early so that we could have time. I just think I'm not saying that we're like the most awesome people, but that was very important to us and has always been very important to us. And so I think that helped us transition into this new phase without a lot of hurdles to jump over. See there, I threw it back to the Olympics again. Hurdles. I am on fire this morning. And we wore red, white, and blue and didn't even plan that. So
oh my gosh. Yes, you are on fire. You're amazing.
But I think we are both also people that are social when we want to be. We know how to talk. We're talkers. We're not real clam up people. So I think that just probably helps too for communication.
Yeah,
skills.
And here I am clamming up because I'm just thinking about it and that sort of thing. I think you're right. I think the areas that are the ones that will help us get to the world record are the ones that, where there are topics that are more conflict ridden, that there are topics that are more difficult to have. Those are ones that, and I'm not saying we're bad at it, but like every couple probably can do better with some of those topics.
And I think over age and time, we've gotten better at broaching those difficult topics. You were talking about being able to talk about other things outside of kids and that kind of thing, but I think, and we talked about this too in another episode, that it does feel like this summer has been all kid and Austin focused. And you even realized yesterday, I haven't even really gotten text from,
like a week of
so,
Austin. Yeah.
Which is probably the longest amount of time that it's been. So I feel like we're getting back to where we have a little breathing room with some of our topics.
Yeah.
So I thought you had something else to say.
I do not have something else to say. I am not communicating well.
You communicated with your face, but I
didn't. My face was, let's go to the next event.
All right. Thinking and talking about our future. This one we have never had an issue with. We've started doing this from the time we met.
Because I can only be the couple that we are, I can't compare it. I can't imagine being a part of a couple that doesn't do this well. And to your point of this is how it's always been. So for me, I think that this is absolutely gold medal for me. I think that we are certainly have nailed the Olympic record and possibly have tapped the world record. And a lot of it is because, well, let me just stay inside me for a second because I think it's we, but I'm just still going to go I. I think we enjoy. Like this is where the fun is. This is where when life is in a drudgery moment, thinking about what it could look like, thinking about what that not that we're going to Nepal, but that trip to Nepal looks like, or what it looks like to do the overwater bungalows. And I think a lot of about our future in my mind has been travel related. And what is actually this phase of life that we're in now, the empty nest, what does that look like and how can we make this awesome? That's why I feel like we've always thought about, and talked about our future.
I think and I'd be interested to see. I enjoy, I'm not trying to take this down that path, but I do enjoy the astrological signs. I just think it's interesting to read how, and we both happen to be of the same one. And I think that some of that, we're dreamers. We like to think about what could be and what could, and it may not always be tangible to get there, but we still enjoy thinking about and dreaming about those kind of things. I mean, I still remember like every year when we would go out for our anniversary, we would have that, okay, where do you see us in so many years? And, I feel like a lot of the stuff has manifested and some of it has not, but I feel like we're at a good place right now, just in life in general. And so now some of these dreams can start to become realities if we...
And what you said there about how a dream, maybe it wasn't something that could be reality, that's part of this thinking and talking about our future. And yes, part of this episode is us doing this. It's also, these are 5 tips for relationships. That's the point of why we're doing this, is overshoot what is possible. Because by dreaming huge, one, you might get it. And if you don't, you're still going to be just slightly subhuge. And how awesome is that? And so I think a lot of those, fantasies that we might have put in our future dreams have allowed us to experience a greatness inside of the reality that may not have hit that fantasy, but it's still really, really awesome.
And I hope that we have instilled that in our children as well. I know one of our children is very much, oh, I'm going to do this. And and doesn't even say it, I want to be able to do this. It's, I'm going to do this. And so I do hope that we have instilled and this goes back to our manifesting optimism conversation last week, that if there's something out there in your future that you think and dream about, then there are ways that you can make it happen.
Yeah. So. And without that dream, there won't be the excitement to then generate the energy to put the physical motion in place to create that tangible result that you're seeking.
Yeah. And I think you can have goals versus dreams.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because like you were saying, goals could be here, but dreams are above the goal. Yeah. And so I'm kind of glad we're ending on this one, because I think this one, and I know we do have some younger listeners who are not empty nesters, this would be one of my biggest tips to that age group category, even our own children, is do the exercise. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? What type of things do you feel like you want to do and dream and think about the future?
And in doing that, it tells you a little bit about the person that you're choosing to do life with. Mm-hmm. That it's not just about what you might achieve. It's about learning who you're sharing life with. And even if your dreams are, well, if they're divergent, then you're going to have to figure that out. But if they're complementarily, is that a word? Complementarily different, then that's something that you can kind of bridge that gap together. You know, if they're wildly divergent, well, then that's get into therapy and figure that out. Oh, I can't wait to have kids. I never want to have kids. Those kind of things.
Those should be things discussed before you get into a deep relationship with someone.
And that's just the exaggeration to make the point. But it really was less about, okay, what will happen in 10 years, but rather, who is this person that we're sharing a nice dinner celebrating the last year of life together, and who is she and what does she want to be?
And you just said something that made me think of, it doesn't have to necessarily be couples. Our kids have roommates. Tegan's already talking about things that they want to do and want to do. So it's interesting that flows into other areas of your life too. If we are continuing down the going into business path together, that is something that we have been discussing and talking about, and now we're starting to be ready to implement some of those things. So,
including the purchase of the world's most ridiculous tripod.
that was the Olympic gold tripod.
That one will be going back. Hey, dude, I don't know that you have this plan, but I know we're about to wrap up here. I'd like to go through all 5 of these events, or however many. I think it was 5, right? Mm-hmm. Here. Not because these were events to think about, but these are relationship tips. And so let's go through all 5 here.
And I think what I'll do this week too, if you've noticed, we've started adding a little bit more to our social media. I'll post these.
Good.
Actually, I could do one a day, so that's a good idea. Okay, so we will go back through. So the first one was maintaining friendships and making new friends.
Okay.
So again, we decided we need to start help on the second one. You need help on the first one.
I really just wanted us to go through a list here, not to reevaluate, but
Okay, I'll just listen.
Let's just judge me.
I said myself. Planning and executing dates and trips. Discovering new hobbies. Communicating with each other. Thinking and talking about our future.
Which I agree with you. I'm glad you closed with that. That is so vital. All of them are vital. But without that vision and without that kind of excitement and hope, then you're wondering, what am I doing here?
And there's other ones that as I was just going through that list, I was kind of equating some of them to love languages.
Oh, yeah.
And, so there's some, maybe we should do that as an episode. Check in on the different categories of love languages and see how that's going.
Okay. High risk, high reward. This could be the last episode. No. This was so the Olympic version today. All right. Well, this was
everyone can go back to watching the real Olympians.
Yes, the ones that are actually incredibly fit. And even the ones. Well, this is so much of even the ones that just don't have a really great Olympics, you still think about, but they were Olympians.
They made it to the Olympics. Yes. So there you go. Thanks for joining us on another episode of The Loud Quiet, Living the Empty Nest.